Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Billy Slater podcast and the Hall of Famer. He joins us now. Hello, Bill.
Hello, Mark Levy, and welcome back, mate. You've been on Olympic duties. Back to reality now.
Yeah, back to reality, back to the greatest game of all. But it was a lot of fun calling the gymnastics and the breakdancing. Geez, Ray Gun's got plenty of publicity. A little bit like your good self, mate. And I was lucky enough to be in the room last Wednesday at the Sydney Cricket Ground where you were inducted into the Rugby League Hall of Fame. And I've got to say this, mate. The way you spoke was beautiful, alongside some of your great mates, Cameron Smith, Greg Inglis, Cooper Cronk, Jonathan Thurston. On behalf of everyone in Rugby League, congratulations on what must be a really special honour for you and your family.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I think that word honour and pride certainly come to mind when I think about the other night. It was such a special night and a real privilege to be a part of it. Like I said, a great honour to be inducted into the Rugby League Hall of Fame. And as I mentioned on the night, I don't recall ever choosing this sport. I don't recall ever choosing this game. And I don't like calling it a sport because where I grew up, it was a way of life. It was just what we did. And one of my mates texted me and said, who would have thought, the kid that was playing footy in the backyard and on Gundy Bend and now inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I feel really honoured and very lucky to still be involved in the game. So congratulations to Ron Coote and all the other inductees. And like you said, I've pretty much half my footy team got inducted on the night, so that was pretty special.
I don't think the NRL could have done it any better, Bill. Having it at the SCG, walking in, past the famous member stand, onto the hallowed turf, and then up into the stand for the function. I just thought it was, as a fan of the game, right? Obviously these days I work in the media, but as a fan of the game, to be in a room with some of the blokes that I've watched play the game and women who are inducted into the Hall of Fame, referees, contributors, I don't think they could have done it any better. It was just perfect.
Yeah, you're right. Even the path to get into the room was onto the SCG, past the historic stand, and everyone got a photo. I just think it was just an injection of history. I thought it was done incredibly well, and I really felt like I was back in kindergarten or grade one where, you've got all these older students and people that you look up to, people who actually built the foundation of our game. And it was just great to be in their presence, and it was a special moment.
You're talking about being in their presence. I ducked to the little boys' room at one point during the function. I had Andrew Johns on one side and Ron Coote on the other. I thought, how good's this? I'm at the immortal urinal. But that's a story for another day. Just on Ron Coote being elevated to our 14th immortal, this is what he had to say at the function last Wednesday night.
I've always worked hard, but I've always had a lot of luck with it. So that's been good too. And like I said, I really appreciate everything what Rugby League has done for me.
Yeah, 9 grand finals, Bill, 6 premierships for both the Roosters and South Sydney. What a great Rugby League man he is, eh?
Yeah, it's uncanny how those two traits connect. Hard work and luck. And, my coach, Craig Bellamy, have always said the harder you work, the luckier you get. And, that's just the humility coming out in Ron Coote. And I'd suggest that he would have worked extremely hard, and that's why the luck came his way. 6 premierships and, 2 historic clubs, 80 years old and now, inducted as an immortal of our game, the 14th immortal. What a moment it was. Very special for him and his family, and not only his feats on the field, but to set up the Men of League, and which is now the Family of League, a charity that helps out anyone who is involved in rugby league that falls on hard times. That's a great legacy for Ron Coote, but now he's an immortal of our game.
Well done, and congratulations to each and every one of those people who are inducted into the Hall of Fame, and to Ron Coote, who became our 14th immortal. Bill, you just mentioned Craig Bellamy there. The Melbourne Storm have claimed another minor premiership. Is that something that Craig Bellamy and the Storm obviously hold very near and dear? We don't remember a lot of the minor premiers. We go on and remember the premiership winners, but gee, the Melbourne Storm looking the goods as we head into the business end of the season.
The one thing that he does value is consistency. And he lives and breathes consistency. He lives and breathes hard work. And And the minor premiership is a result of a consistent footy team. Our season goes for an extremely long period of time, and to stand at the top, or to sit at the top of the ladder after 27 rounds, we're not even there yet. We're still a fortnight away, and they've already wrapped it up. So that gives you an indication of their consistency. They haven't been extremely brilliant all year. For the first half of the season, they were winning games by 2 points, 4 points, but they were getting the job done through effort, and they're starting to hit their straps at the right time. So, yeah, it's a great feat for not only Craig Bellamy, but the whole club. To win a minor premiership, and even to win a premiership, you need all categories and all departments pulling in the same direction and all in for the season. You need the playing group, obviously. They're front and centre, and they're the soldiers out on the field. But from the coaching staff to the administration, the medical staff, the recruitment team, they've all got to be working at an extremely high level for a long period of time. So well done to the Melbourne Storm. I think it's their 5th minor premiership in 9 years or 8 years.
Wow.
That's an incredible feat, the way that the competition is set up, and not to mention the decade before that and how they've been able to sustain their success.
We had Harry Grant on radio yesterday. I think we found the secret weapon for the Storm. I just randomly said, Harry, what does a bloke like yourself do sort of once you've finished the game, you get a bit of time off, what do you do? He said, I actually went around to Big Tui Kamakamitha's place for a bowl of carver. So maybe carver's the secret weapon at the Melbourne Storm that have got them on this winning. Have you ever tried the carver? It just looks like dirty water to me.
Yeah, it tastes like that too. So, but he's getting in touch with the culture of the Fijians. But yeah, no, what an afternoon that would have been.
Jeez, I reckon you would have woken up with a headache afterwards. We did say to Harry, don't tell bellyache, he might not be too impressed. Just on the top 8, so you got Storm winning the minor premiership. Roosters, Sharks, Panthers make up the top 4. Then you've got Bulldogs, Cowboys, Sea Eagles, Dragons. Then you've got, 4 teams on 26 points. Broncos, Dolphins, Knights and Raiders. Is the top 8 settled, or could you see one of those 4 teams climbing into the top 8 over the next couple of weeks?
Well, the minor premiership race is done, Mark. I see 2 other races. There's a race for the top 4, and we put so much importance on that top 4. I think ladder position is one of 3 categories that you need to win a premiership. So that top 4 is really important, and at the moment you've got 3 teams on 36 points, 2nd, 3rd and 4th. And then you've got the Bulldogs just hanging around 2 points behind. They're only 1 win behind the Panthers, Sharks, and the Roosters. That's going to heat up over the next 2 weeks, and it's all important. Like, you get a second bite of the cherry, you get an opportunity to win your first final, and then go straight into the preliminary final. That's a huge advantage. The second race is for that 8th position, and that's the Dragons, who are sitting in there at the moment. They're 1 win clear of 4 teams. That's the Broncos, Dolphins, Knights and the Raiders. The one interesting fact out of those 4 teams, there's only one team on a positive for and against, and that's the Broncos. So they're in the box seat. If they're gonna jump anyone and jump into that 8th position, the Broncos are in the box seat. The one big hurdle that they do have is they've got the Melbourne Storm in the final round. It's going to be interesting. Craig Bellamy has already spoken about resting players. Will he rest players this week up in Townsville and next week? Or will he just rest players this week and then go fully fit, full strength into that last round to get some momentum into the finals? That's the big question mark. But the Broncos are in the box seat to leapfrog the Dragons if they do slip up the Dragons.
It's interesting you talk about resting players. I was thinking about this driving home yesterday. We were talking on radio about some of the teams who, are looking the goods and in cruise control and all that sort of thing. And I thought to myself, right, Roosters, a player like James Tedesco who didn't feature in the Origin series. Then you've got the Panthers and Nathan Cleary who didn't feature in the Origin series. As a bloke who played Origin, those 2 superstars of our game who didn't have to play Origin this year, how beneficial is it for them being fresh for their club leading into a final series? Do you sort of see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I do see where you're coming from. I think if you've earned the opportunity to rest players, you work out what is best. Whether they've played Origin or not, I think you need three things. Three things to win a premiership. Ladder position is really important. The second thing is you need a healthy squad. You need your best players playing at the right time of the year in the big games. Third thing is momentum. You need to be playing your best football at the right time of the year. So resting players can give you that healthy squad, can tick one of those boxes. The other one is momentum and playing your best footy at the right time of the year. I think you all need to be playing, unless you're half injured and a week's going to benefit you. I think that last round is really important to play your best team. So I would imagine that Craig Bellamy would rest a lot of players, prevent them going up to Townsville, hot conditions, and then having to come back and then go to Brisbane for that last round. I think there'll be a lot of players rested for Melbourne this week, but next week, unfortunately for the Broncos, I think they'll be full strength.
Okay. Well, that's how it looks at the moment. Just before we whip through the games, and I've tried to sort of bury the controversy in here because every week
Controversy, surely, no
well,
controversy.
Salty and myself, we always have to bring up the controversy in rugby league. We wouldn't have a game without controversy. The whole high contact thing, I said over the weekend, I think it's reached a point where we need to come up with some ideas on how to sort of fix this. And, you know, when we've got humans making decisions, there's going to be mistakes. But where I think a few people are getting frustrated, including some of the coaches who spoke, is when the bunker is getting it wrong. Have you got any ideas on how we can alleviate some of the pressure on our referees, who do a great job, and you've made that point on this podcast for a long, long time. I'm just coming from a point now where I think we need to work out how we can make life easier on our match officials. What about you, Bill?
Well, you know what we've done is we've tried to make our referees match review committee as well. That's what we tried to do. So I think err on the side of caution when we sin bin players. I think we sin bin players way too much. Let the match review committee sort it out. If it's a penalty, it's a penalty. If it's extremely bad, yeah, sure, 10 in the bin. But it affects the game penalties affect the game so much. And I don't know the stats, but just watching all the games on the weekend, there was an extremely high amount of penalties given this weekend compared to any other weekends. I don't know the stats behind it, but I'm guessing that it was higher than the average. So I don't know whether it's 3 weeks before the finals and the referees want to get some clean football in there before they get to the finals, but it's such a contributing factor when your team's getting six agains against them, or even penalties against them. But there is inconsistency around, you know, high contact and whether they go to the bin or not, and all this mitigating circumstances and medium contact and force, and they're forced to explain themselves on the run, which is making it even more confusing. But at the end of the day, if you don't do the wrong thing, you won't get penalised, I suppose.
Mitigating factors, it's become the buzzwords in rugby league, hasn't it?
I don't even know what it means, so don't even ask me there.
Last time I heard that was at a car accident. The police officer said there were mitigating factors. Now we're using it on a football field. Anyway, we'll leave it to Graham Annesley and the referees to deal with. I've just reached a point where I'm sick and tired of blowing up about it. I'm just trying to think of ways in which we can sort of alleviate the pressure on the match officials who have got the toughest job in the game. Anyway, we go back to the games themselves. Before we talk about some of the premiership contenders, West Tigers, Leichhardt Oval. Maybe some promising signs for the future, Bill.
They're on a roll, the Tigers. That's 2 in a row. They beat the Rabbitohs at Campbelltown, and then they went to Leichhardt and beat a team in the top 8, Manly Seagulls, who have got a really dangerous footy team. Tom Trbojevic tried his best to get his team over the line, but just wasn't quite enough. But yeah, they were good. They did a lot right. They didn't start well. I think it was 16-0 to start the game, and then they fought their way back. They've got a superstar in the making in the number 6 jersey, Lockie Galvin. I love the way he plays footy, and I love the way he's enjoying his footy. I actually took the microphone into the dressing sheds after the game for Channel 9, and the enjoyment that they were feeling. Obviously, they haven't had too many wins, and Lockie Galvin, he just looked like a kid in the candy store, and he's not far off a kid. So He had a microphone there. He was doing interviews for the digital team for the Tigers, and it was just a really good moment to see a young guy like that has come into first grade and has played exceptional in a really tough environment. They haven't had too many things to celebrate the Tigers, but Benji Marshall is finally getting through to a few of these younger guys, and they're getting a bit right. It's still going to be a journey, but they're on the right track.
And Benji said after the game, we're starting to work out what works for us, which is good. So some promising signs for the West Tigers. You speak of microphones. Did you see Paul Gallen, our colleague, at halftime yesterday after he played in the Legends game at Wynn Stadium in Wollongong? Geez, he was blowing interviewing Craig Fitzgibbon, wasn't he, Bill?
He's got to get out. He's got to get out of the gym. Get back on the treadmill or something, Galza. Although he does a bit of running, I've seen him doing sand dunes and that sort of stuff. It doesn't take long. It doesn't take long to lose it.
Well, we go to Warriors and Bulldogs. That was the early game on Friday. I thought it was a nice touch, the Warriors renaming Go Media Stadium to Shaun Johnson Stadium, his last game in New Zealand. But the Bulldogs spoiled the party, and I suppose it was all about that Stephen Crichton tackle on Roger Tuivasa-Sheck.
Yeah, just on Shaun Johnson. Look, there's been very few Kiwis or very few players that have dragged kids along this journey and dragged kids to play our game than Shaun Johnson. I think Benji Marshall's probably another one, but Shaun has been a great role model for all kids, but in particular for young Kiwi kids to come and play our game. We all know the attraction to play rugby union over in New Zealand, and with guys like Shaun Johnson, he has been front and centre of attracting people to our game, and not just kids, but people to come and watch him play. I thought it was a great tribute to name the stadium after him for the weekend, and unfortunately the Warriors couldn't get it done, but he's been a wonderful player for a long time. Fortunate enough to play against Shaun, and he just seems like a really good person as well.
Congratulations to him. The Crichton tackle on Tuivasa-Sheck has been the big talking point.
Well, that was one of those ones that didn't get sin binned.
Yeah.
Roger, he had to leave the field and never came back on. So, that's one of those incidents that the coaches are getting a little bit frustrated with, where they see other teams and other players, get sin binned for very similar offences. And I think Stephen Crichton's been charged by the match review committee. He's facing a couple of weeks on the sideline. But to be honest, I think that I like that way more than the other way. If it's a bit not too sure, let the match review committee sort it out. We may have to, have situations where the 18th man can come on the field in those situations. But I'd rather that than just jump up and down and throw people in the sin bin, and that ruins the spectacle of the game. So there's no perfect situation for this, but I think consistency is what everyone's frustrated with. Suncorp
Stadium Friday night, the Broncos had to win. Bit of a shaky start for them. Adam Reynolds, the little number 7, he guided them around the park and got them home against Parramatta.
Scored a couple of tries. They weren't perfect, but they're getting the job done, and they're keeping their season alive. It's not over until it's over. I said that a couple of weeks on this podcast when everyone was saying that the Broncos are done, and I still think it's a long shot to play finals, but they've got a chip in the chair and they're still fighting. So still without their star fullback Reece Walsh. I'm hearing Payne Haas may be back this week. That'll be a huge inclusion. And they play the Dolphins this week, so they're on equal points to the Dolphins. So one of those teams is going to continue to apply pressure to the Dragons. And the Broncos, well, they're every chance to push forward.
They certainly are. We move to the Raiders and the Panthers. This one was played down in GIO Stadium in Canberra. And it's not often we see the Panthers lose football games these days, but the Green Machine, they got them at home.
No, but one thing you do see regularly is when Ricky Stewart's team, the Raiders, put in a bad performance, he can turn their attitude around within 7 days. And they went up to Townsville last week and they got belted. He was very disappointed in his team in the press conference after the game, and he changed their attitude. It just goes to show that that if you turn up with the right attitude, irrelevant of your ladder position, irrelevant of the talent in your footy team, you give yourself a chance to win a footy game, and they did extremely well. They made 4 errors in the whole game, so that was extraordinary. I thought Xavier Savage was super. Timoko taking that intercept was a big play towards the end of the game. And the Raiders, I think it was their last home game of the year, celebrating Elliot Whitehead's 9-year stint at the club. He was very emotional after the game, and Ricky Stewart, he's done it again.
Yep, he's done it again. All right. I love when we see players get emotional. Shows to the fans what the club means to the individual. And Elliot Whitehead, heading back to the motherland, so to speak, he's been a great player for the Canberra Raiders, and he's been a great Englishman here in the National Rugby League for a few years.
Yeah, what it does is when those players are, because when they're going through their career, they're so focused on their job at hand. They're so focused on improving and being professional and being the best that they can possibly be. In those situations, they have this moment where they reflect on their whole journey and they look at the big picture. Very rarely do professional athletes look at the big picture. They're all about the little incremental improvements that they want to see and they're going after. When they sit back and look at that big picture, it's all relevant. They see what they've achieved. They see the mates and the friendships that they've created, the relationships, and the feeling. And that feeling is going to leave them. They're not going to be able to feel that anymore. So it's a great moment when you see people becoming emotional, and we see it all the time when people retire. So they look back at their journey and they see it as a whole for the first time.
We've touched on the Storm. We go to South Sydney and Newcastle. The Knights ended up getting the cash in this one. But look, disappointing season for Newcastle, disappointing season for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. When it comes to the Rabbitohs, it's all about Latrell and the return of Wayne Bennett. Is the super coach the man to turn things around at Redfern for the Bunnies, Bill?
Well, he's as good as any. He's as good as any. And they have been poor this year, the Rabbitohs, but they've had their fair share of injury as well. When their best players haven't been playing, they've really struggled. Not to say other teams haven't had their best players on the field. Cameron Munster's been out for a long time. Nathan Cleary's been out for a long time. So, the good teams can handle that. The Rabbitohs just aren't in that category just yet. So, they've really struggled this year. And if anyone is going to help them, Wayne Bennett is certainly going to do that. He's already got a great relationship with Cody Walker and Latrell Mitchell. And I think Jack Whiten was good on the weekend. So they've got a footy team there. Wayne Bennett could just be the guy to put it all together.
Last 2 games of the round, the Roosters thumped the Gold Coast Titans yesterday. Listening to a few of the experts in the game, a lot of people think the Roosters are in cruise control. They haven't got out of second gear just yet. Are they one of the teams to keep an eye on this final series, Bill?
Absolutely. I mentioned before the 3 categories that I feel are really important to go on and challenge for the premiership: ladder position, health, and performance. I think they're the other team that are ticking all of those 3 boxes. Although Suoliti went off with a shoulder injury or an arm injury yesterday, so their health just took a little bit of a hit. But their ladder position, they've just leapfrogged the Panthers. They're in second position, and they're playing as good as anyone. They've got a really dangerous footy team. Angus Crichton is playing as good as I've seen him play. They've got strike all over the field. They're real athletic and talented outside backs. And Sammy Walker's just coming into his own as well. So, along with the Melbourne Storm, I think they're the team that are sitting at the top, ticking all of those 3 boxes.
All right, and then we go to the local derby in Wollongong, the Dragons and the Sharks. There's still no Nico Hines, and from all reports, he might be a week or 2 away from making his return. But, hasn't Daniel Atkinson done a great job in the absence of Nico Hines? Braden Trindle was back there yesterday, and the Sharks ran away with it in the second half.
Yeah, he's been great, Daniel Atkinson. A real unsung hero for the Sharks this year. Every time that there's been an injury, he's filled in and done a great job. I thought Braden Trindle's return was super important. Their attack flowed better. They were more dangerous with the football, and they were a class above the Dragons. The Dragons just can't find that consistency. They'll beat the Melbourne Storm down in Melbourne, first time in 20 years, and then they'll put in a poor performance. So they've been going week on, week off. They might be in the mines at the moment, just week on, week off at the moment. So, but the Sharks, they're cruising along nicely. They're flying under the radar. No one's really talking about the Sharks, and they've got a powerful footy team, and Trindle made a huge difference. You get Nico Hines back, and if he's fit enough and playing anywhere to the best of his ability, they'll be a dangerous footy team to come up against.
All right, Billy, we move to the Billy M Awards, which I must say I've missed during the Olympic Games in the last couple of weeks. Most impressive team from round 24. Which team caught your eye?
I can't get past my Melbourne Storm. They were super impressive, 48 points to 6. There was a few real standout players like Harry Grant, Jerome Hughes were good, but everyone was good. Jack Howarth is doing a great job in the centres. Everyone was good, and that's what Craig Bellamy demands, is everyone contribute, everyone play their role, really hitting their straps at the right time and to seal that minor premiership. The Dolphins aren't an easy team to beat. They get a fair bit right, and they put them away pretty easy. So Melbourne Storm win the Team of the Week award. Who wins the individual award for round 25? A young fella from the Tigers, Lockie Galvin. I was at Leichhardt, saw it firsthand, and he's got great skill. He's not the quickest guy. He's actually a lot bigger than you think. He's quite a tall lad. I love his want to be in the game. I love his want the moment, and he doesn't get it right all the time, but he does more times than not. And if you put yourself in the picture and you want the game and you want that moment, they're the good players. He's got it all, and he's going to get better and better. Love the smile that he does it with, and he's a super player. You have a look. They were leading, I think it was by 4 points right at the end of the game, and there was 2 seconds to go. He goes down a short side, he shows in, and they're trying to score a try. Benji Marshall would have been having a heart attack up in the box, but that's the way he plays. He goes after it, and he was the best player on the field, and I thought he was the player of the week.
Well, it's funny, you talk about Lockie Galvin. There's a question here from Sam, one of our listeners, and you can email us, billyslaterpodcast@9.com.au if you've got a question for the Rugby League Hall of Famer. Hey, Bill, do you think a case can be made for the Dally M 5/8 of the year to go to Lockie Galvin, given what he's done this year for the Tigers?
Yeah, I think he's worthy of a nomination, that's for sure. I don't know if he's been the best number 6 this year. He's been up there. I think Jerome Luai has. I know he's played a fair bit of footy at halfback without Nathan Cleary, but Jerome Luai has really elevated himself to a premier half, standalone half. He's always been a great player, but he's really balanced his game this year, and I think Jerome Luai's probably been the best. Some other candidates, I thought Matt Burton's been great. Luke Brooks has been really good, transferring to the Manly Seagulls, but Lockie Galvin would certainly be in the conversation.
And a question from Mark Levy in Sydney. Do you, Billy Slater, think that I will beat Peter Basaltis in this running race that you guys have been talking about the last couple of weeks?
Well, the Channel 9 running race, 100-metre sprint. Well, there's been talk it's going to be handicapped, so I don't know where we're all going to start. But if we all start on an even playing field, mate, Salty might get you out of the blocks, but I think your efficient style might pick him up by about halfway, and momentum might take you over the line. So my money's going to be on Mark Levy.
Thank you, Bill. Well, look, I might be a heap, right? But I've got longer legs than little Danny DeVito doing these ones.
Especially
100 metres.
If you wear your Rabbitohs jersey that's sitting in behind there.
Mate, I need more help than a Rabbitohs jersey, put it that way. Bring it on, Salty. I'll be beating you on grand final day. NRLW, before we get out of here, the Knights beat the Eels 36-16. Cowboys beat the Raiders. Titans over the Roosters, and the Broncos, a big win over the West Tigers. We're a few rounds into the NRLW competition, round 5, in fact, of the women's premiership for 2024.
Yeah, the two teams I've been really impressed with is obviously the Sharks. They're unbeaten so far this season, 5 wins from 5 games. They're going along nicely. The Broncos, I called the Broncos 2 weeks ago, and they were brilliant up there in Brisbane. They found it a little bit hard to get going against the Tigers. Unfortunately, the Tigers haven't won a game. First half, Tigers were winning 14-6, and the Broncos just destroyed them in the second half. So much talent in that Broncos team. So they're the two teams I think will be pushing for the premiership. Obviously, you've got the Newcastle Knights, the back-to-back premiers, and also the Roosters. They've been pretty impressive as well. So, yeah, looking forward to that race to the finals as well.
And then we look ahead to round 26 of the National Rugby League. Quite a few games of importance in the context of premierships and finals footy and top 8 and top 4 and everything along those lines. We've got Cowboys, Storm, Bulldogs, Sea Eagles, Panthers, Rabbitohs, Eels, Dragons, Dolphins, Broncos, Sharks, Warriors, Knights, Titans, and Roosters, Raiders, the second last round of the regular season, Billy.
Yeah, Cowboys Storm on Thursday night. That'll be interesting who lines up there. We'll have to wait till tomorrow to find out the team that Craig Bellamy puts out there. That Saturday afternoon, 5:30, Dolphins and the Broncos. That's all important. And then the Dragons. When do the Dragons play? They play on Saturday against the Eels. Yeah. So if the Dragons lose that'll make it interesting for the next game on Saturday afternoon. So all games are interesting now. See where the ladder could move. The ladder might stay the same. So watch this space.
Now, the producers of this wonderful podcast are playing with my head here, Billy. I'm about to wrap it up. And given I'm having a race against Peter Basaltis, it says here, I'm Peter Basaltis, that's the Billy Slater podcast. No, I'm not. I'm Levy. I'll be beating Salty on grand final day. But great, man, you have a great week. And we'll see you on the telly over the course of the weekend.
Good to have you back, Leaves.
Good on you, mate. There he is, Billy Slater, the Rugby League Hall of Famer. Congratulations to him and his family. This has been the Billy Slater podcast, and we do it for Ram Trucks.
This year, NRL on 9 is your one-stop shop for all footy.
That's right, Freddie. Not about the highlights, action, 7 days a week.
Billy and Gus podcast, get that on your drive on the way home. Immortal Behaviour, grab a seat on the couch for that. And of course, my favourite, Freddie in the 8.
The best footy brains, the biggest games.
Don't trust the algorithm, subscribe to NRL on 9 and get all your entertainment there.